Hi HR Nation, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today we're joined by Debbie Shotwell, Chief People Officer at Stack Overflow. Welcome to the show, Debbie. How are you?
Thanks, Chris, for having me on the show. I am great, doing well here in California.
Nice. I was going to ask you where you tuned in from, but California, is everything good in California? How are things?
Yes, the weather's great and spring has sprung. So lots of smelly grass, and it's causing allergies now for people here in California.
It definitely hasn't reached us yet. It's pretty cold and miserable still in the UK. Today's a little bit better, to be honest, but that's the typical weather of where we are now. Just for everyone tuning in, David, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your kind of journey to where we are now at Stack Overflow.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. I have been in human resources for now, what I'd say, over 20 years, and it has changed tremendously, not only in the last 5 years, but particularly over the last year and a half. Lots of change. Personally, I'm married and my adult children are out of the house. Which is nice, but sometimes very lonely. But I do have a cat that is here I'm taking care of for my daughter. And so the cat sometimes crawls and jumps on the table and gets in the middle of the video. Don't worry, it won't happen today. I locked her in.
We should be good. And then to sort of journey to where you are now?
So I experienced lots of different things in the human resources field, but started in healthcare and really started on the compensation side of the house and really made a big leap when I took really my first head of HR job at a company called Bay Apartment Communities that merged with a company called Avalon. It was a publicly held REIT, and I worked for them for about 5 years and then went into technology. I've spent most of my career working in HCM companies. PeopleSoft was one of them. So it was an awesome company to work for. Really, really helped my career. And then I went to Taleo and I worked. Taleo was purchased by Oracle. And most recently worked for Good Technology, worked for Saba Software, Big Commerce, and now I'm here at Stack Overflow, and it's a really new journey for me. It started this year, and it was in transition during the COVID pandemic. We actually went through an acquisition with Cornerstone. Purchased Saba Software, so I left. I took some time off, which was amazing. And I started with Stack in January, and it's a journey. There's lots of fun stuff going on and never a dull moment, which is nice.
Well, to tell everyone quickly who aren't aware of Stack, about a little bit more about the company.
Yeah, Stack Overflow has 100 million users and they're engineers, and they work on our platform and they answer questions. They help each other. So they do coding, and Stack Overflow is known for its team product. The team product was developed about 3 years ago. It just launched last week with a freemium product. And so you as a team can sign up for free, and you can have up to 50 users. It will always be free. We aren't going to take that away. And it's a new launch for us. Our goal was to have 1,000 new teams online within the first month. We had 1,000 before the end of the first week, which is amazing. We have over 4,000 teams as of yesterday afternoon. And we also have the talent product, the ads, the branding product as well that are on Stack Overflow. And so the whole platform allows you to post jobs, advertisements, and our engineers all over the world see that because they're on the platform. So it offers opportunities for employers to brand their companies and to post positions out onto our shared platform. It's really an awesome way for recruiting to utilize the platform. And now with Teams, with all of us being at home, it's exploded. So everyone wants to be able to work together on projects. So it's been I think over the last year and a half, they've seen a real difference in the products, and our sales have increased significantly.
Is it just for engineers for the team thing, or any teams can use it? Just
any teams.
Okay.
So for example, our people team utilizes it where we actually share information and answer questions and help each other, and also our employees. So we answer questions for our employees when they come through.
Oh, I have to look at that now, because I just assumed it was just for the purely focused on the engineers. And on the recruiting side, though, is that still focused just on that talent space?
On the recruiting side, it's really the talent platform, but companies really want to advertise their positions, and they want to advertise the company for others to come to work for it. But it doesn't have to be just engineers, but that was primarily the way it was developed.
Well, let's be honest, it's probably the most in-demand talent right now. So.
Yes, and it's very, very challenging to recruit. Stack Overflow has lots of engineering positions. So if you're an engineer, you need to check out Stack Overflow, because we do have a lot of opportunities all over the world, including the UK.
Yeah, it must have exploded. I can only imagine now, because you're no longer defined by where you're based and the location, right? It's truly the door's been blown open. There's no going back.
It's amazing where you can find talent now, which you closed the doors before, and the opportunity for people to take positions is just phenomenal. And I think it's a new world for all of us, employers and employees, because you get additional opportunities. You would have never had an opportunity to even talk to a company. Yeah.
There's no longer the thing of, we can't find talent in this area. Well, you don't need to. You've got the entire world to go after now. Cool. Well, I didn't know that, so I learned something new on this call.
Check it out. You can have a free team site for your team, your actual team, and you guys can work together on things.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it after this call. I'm not even just saying that as well. Definitely not a paid ad for everyone listening. I didn't know about this before the call, but Debbie, thank you for letting me know. I'm definitely going to check it out as well. How was it transitioning into a new role during a pandemic? That must have been pretty tough.
It was, but it wasn't, because I've been a remote employee for a long time anyway. I've spent a fair amount of my time working on Zoom or other platforms, traveled quite a bit in my job. So, I know the drill. The Stack team was 40% remote before the pandemic. So it really, really made my process really easy. A great team who was able to, send my computer to the house, and we had online sessions for the first week, and not every hour of the day, which was great. You had time to really learn and dig into the material. So they had a pretty robust program, which is nice. Now, I know for some organizations it's a little different, but since it's a engineering, internet-based company anyway, SaaS company, it made it a lot easier. I know for some companies it's difficult, but it was really nice. And there was a full program for me to get started.
Yeah. Well, given the fact that they literally sell a product that does exactly that. I'm sure if they did, whoa, this is our time to shine.
For sure. They showed their stuff. So, and we're utilizing it in the department as well.
So where do you see the biggest opportunity that you can make in the business, where you can add the most value, given your experience and background?
The organization, that's a good question. The organization has been around for 10 years. And it's gone through a lot of transformation. It was founded by Joel, who was an engineer, and it was an engineering company. And he was, and still is, he's on the board, but he cared so much about the people part of the business. It makes part of my job really, really easy. The benefits are wonderful. The programs they had in place for the people were great. However, as companies grow and they transform and they need to grow up and scale, a lot of the processes and the systems aren't in place in order to do that. So one of the things that I've been taking a look at is what processes, what systems, and what people need to make shifts and changes in order for us to scale. And what are the, what's the workforce going to look like a year or two from now? Because it can't stay the same. And we also have the pandemic, which you've mentioned. And what's it mean when we return to the office, and what's it look like? Because we know it's not going to look the same. It's going to be different. And so we need to make some decisions around that as well. And so some of the things that I'm helping the organization through have to deal with that, but also culture. When you make modifications with systems and technology and process, what happens is you have to take a look at your culture, and you have to look at your values of the organization. You have to make shifts and changes, and you have to be really clear on communications.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges that you've come across? You've done this in multiple companies. What are some common mistakes that you see that you've maybe made yourself, or you see other HR leaders make in this transition?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's an assumption that it's easy, that you take a playbook out and that you can do it over and over again. Every organization's different. So one of the challenges that, and I've experienced this in one company, you can actually go and sit down and you can have a conversation with your people about what's it mean to work there, what's culture mean to you, and what do you see being the values of the company. And then on the other hand, when you work for a company that's going through an acquisition and a merger, what you see is that you actually have to sit down and say, okay, we're going to be a new company. This is our mission. And our mission means, that we are going to provide products and services, and this is what it looks like. And you can be very detail oriented on what that looks like and share it with your employees. And then you can slap on the wall, as I call it, values. And people will tell you, well, that's not the way it is here. Mm-hmm. That's just not true. We don't understand what GSD is, get shit done. That doesn't resonate with us. Whereas make a difference does, to an organization. So really understanding how things work and how people get things done and how they communicate is really critical. And really, you can't have the leadership team tell the employees what their values are and how they work and what their culture is, because it's there. It's their culture.
Yeah.
You have to get them to participate in it and really ask them the questions. Spend the time learning the organization, do round tables, do surveys. So I think there's a variety of different ways people get to it, but your employees own the company and how things get done. And they know better than, a head of HR who walks in to really, really tell them what to do. It's the same thing when you do a survey, an employee survey, and you say to that, you say, answer all these questions, and then you read it and you don't like the results, and the leadership team doesn't do anything with it. You have to really action and really put together a plan on what it's going to look like, and go back sometimes and say, this is what we heard you say. What does this mean? So you have to spend time on it. It's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, and it's ongoing, right? But I think people are just misconception. It's like a project that you do in a few months and then it's done. This is ever evolving.
And it's not HR. It's not HR. It's everyone. It's leadership. It's every single employee has to take part in it.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn about, have you gone through this process since being at Stack Overflow?
Stack did this in 2019. So they all got together, all the employers, employees, stackers, that's what they call
stackers.
themselves. We call ourselves stackers, yeah. And they got together in Texas and they spent the time on it. And it was an offsite and they had fun activities with it as well. And they actually came up with their values and their mission. And this past year, they came up with their strategy for ongoing goals and development, which is great. There is a question on whether or not we should look at those values again, and should we go through an exercise, because the organization has changed significantly since 2019. I think a lot of organizations have changed since 2019 because of the pandemic. So there is a possibility we will do it. I would say it'd be later this year or early next year if we do spend time on that.
Yeah.
We're hiring. That's what we're doing. We're spending a lot of time on interviewing and recruiting people to the company.
Let's talk about that then. How have you changed your hiring practices to adapt to this new?
Yeah, they needed to be a little more agile. So, when you have, 50 engineering positions open, you can't use a slow process. You really need to streamline all your processes, your interviews, the number of interviews, the number of panel interviews. Are you going to use an assessment tool? Are you going to have a exercise? So what we've had to do is really change our processes, and we had to spend more time actually looking at all the applicants. We've received probably over 1,000 resumes for each job that we posted, and that's a huge difference from what they saw in 2020. So just since January, the spike in the number of people that have applied for positions has caused us to bring in more sourcers and to bring in more recruiters into the organization to help us with the volume that we've received. It's a good problem to have. And now we just need to select people and get the acceptance. I don't think it's a pipeline issue at all. I think it's how many hours in the day do you have, and can you spend going through resumes and interviewing candidates? Because there's work to be done. We're building products. We're spending time on that team product so we could get it launched.
Do you use your own product for this in terms of the applicant tracking and that onboarding?
We don't use the Teams product for our recruiting. We do use the platform to input jobs, and the jobs are available online. We use everything you can possibly imagine. LinkedIn, we have an ATS system. So we use all the usual suspects, although LinkedIn isn't really necessarily a great tool for engineers. A lot of engineers don't really spend time on them.
I can't imagine engineers sitting there on LinkedIn, to be honest. They're probably the opposite, the last person you'd expect to be. They're probably on there. They probably have a basic profile, but in terms of engaging with them on there and getting a response, yeah, I can imagine you're not going to get much of a response. That's not surprising.
It'd be easier to go into Stack Overflow and advertise on there versus on LinkedIn.
Oh, it's just kind of built for them specifically, right? You've designed the platform for them in a way, like a language, it's everything.
It's almost like an engineering tool that's equal to a LinkedIn. It's really for engineers because it's very technical.
Yeah. So once you've kind of identified a candidate, what are you doing? Things on like Zoom interviews, or like how does it all work together and to communicate back and forth? Is it manual at the moment in terms of the process? I know obviously many companies are still working on what that looks like.
Yeah, we have an ATS system. So we utilize the ATS system, which we can send obviously notifications through. We also interview via Zoom. We have panel interviews that are Zoom as well for some of the engineering and product positions. So we spend a fair amount of time with each candidate to make sure that they understand the company and understand what we're trying to accomplish, and really, really make sure they feel comfortable, because we don't want to hire someone that won't fit and won't feel comfortable, particularly now because it's not like they have a place to go. They don't have an office to go to. So you have to make sure that they're comfortable being at home, working, remotely, and working in our platforms that we do technical work on. So it is very different than maybe before, where they could go to an office.
Have you done a lot of training with your team and the managers to train them of how to interview via video call? Because it's very different. It's a very different experience.
Yes. A fair amount of time was spent with the managers last year, but we're also going to do an update to that this year. So that's actually right now being worked on. So we're preparing it and getting it ready for our managers.
Yeah, because it's hard to kind of read the room, isn't it, when you're not in the room with someone? And it's even as someone going through an interview on the opposite end, you're worried about, is my background tidy? Do I wear a suit? If I'm at home, do I wear a suit and a tie? Because I'm sure your audience is probably not. If you're a developer or a coder, you're probably not sitting there with a suit and tie on before.
They don't wear suits and ties. Yeah, in fact, we even have our recruiters tell people, don't get dressed up.
Oh, you say that. That's good. I like that. I think that's good, because otherwise it'd be a bit weird when you're sitting in your bedroom with a...
I always tell people, don't feel like you have to get dressed up, and, be comfortable. That's the most important thing, is we want people to be comfortable during the interview. We don't want them to be, uncomfortable and, worried about their cats and their dogs. I actually prefer that. You can just add those cats and dogs into.
It just tells them a bit more about who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, it tells you they're human, because we all are human. We have children running in, asking questions. It's actually entertaining. It makes it a lot more interesting than in an office, because in an office, you don't see any of that. So you actually learn a lot more about people when they're at home.
Mm-hmm. A big, obviously, emphasis over last year as well has been around I&D. And I'm also wondering, especially in your industry as well, is obviously very male dominated. How are you tackling that part, both internally, but also externally, in perhaps recruiting more females onto the platform as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that Stack Overflow has done an awesome job in this area. And I was intrigued when I interviewed with them, because the company is not that large. As I had said, we have under 500 employees, but they have a person that's dedicated to diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And they've made a big effort to actually have a sourcer who helps us with diversity and inclusion. And so we are always looking to hire more females and more people of color. We're really, really making an effort, and we've improved quite a bit over the last year and a half. But the organization's always been diverse. Mm-hmm. The founder, diverse. I think the women in the organization have been really, really influential and really key to the success of the company. The best part is that head of engineering and product is a female. So we attract naturally quite a few females that want to come to work for the organization because they see that she brings diversity to the company. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also helping us. We also have donated quite a bit to BLM and other organizations. We're going to make a donation to helping our Asian communities with the most recent acts of violence. So it's a very caring organization that's diverse. We can always do better though. My position on this, technology companies can do better. And it's going to take CEOs and it's going to take all of us in leadership positions to really combat violence, terrorism, and really diversity and belonging in organizations. If people can't come to the company and feel like they belong and they fit, they will leave. And turnover costs so much money. It's just not worth it. So you have to spend the time up front in that recruiting process to make sure that you understand what the person's looking for and if they're going to fit and if they will be successful at the company. And a lot of times it's really teaching your leaders and your managers, what does that mean? Because they don't know. That's a big piece of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. One of the questions I was interested, you just kind of sparked a question in my head is, over the last year, our employees now are looking to their organizations on what their stance is on a lot of these social matters, whether it's politics, social injustice, BLM, et cetera, and it's kind of fallen on HR in many ways to communicate, this is the stance we're taking on X. Is that something you've seen? You know, I haven't really seen that in the past as much to this level. Now everyone's looking to their business saying, you know, are we gonna show support for this? Are we gonna, you know, what is our stance? And then you get some companies that just go quiet and don't say anything at all because they're worried about saying the wrong thing, and you know, and then like the backlash they could get. And then you have others that have a really strong stance. I wanted to get your thoughts on how you've approached this in the past, this company and obviously your previous company.
Yeah, so I'm always one that likes to hear something personally. And I don't think it's HR's job.
It's not, but it's fallen on HR, unfortunately.
Yes, You're right. It's not our job to actually be the voice, but I think it's our responsibility to remind the organization that we're here and we're representing people within it. And we're all human beings, and everyone has a different position. You know, as you know, in the US, what we've seen over the last year is, you know, very divided. But taking a position and a stance is been important, not only at Stack, but in my previous positions, you know, where I've said, it's time, you need to hire somebody who is responsible for diversity, inclusion, belonging. And it's really, really our job to represent the people. We call it people function for a reason. And, you know, we hear probably more in the HR function than other parts of the organization. So we know people's positions because sometimes they come to us with their personal problems, particularly during the pandemic. We've heard more stories of mental illness, people struggling and their parents struggling. The recent acts of Asian violence has been very traumatic to our employees and their parents. They really have targeted elderly people, and the stories are heartbreaking. So if you can't be the human being and go and be the voice for the organization, who is going to do that? Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm coming from. So I think it's always important that you take a stance and you give back into your communities that you work in. And it's same thing when it's about donations and giving. And anytime you can create something where people rally around, they want that. They want to know that you care, that you're an organization that has a voice and that you're going to give back into the communities, into your employees.
Mm-hmm. And also for talent, looking at which organization they're going to work for, that's something they're looking at on their top of their priority as well, especially Gen Z, connecting their work to their purpose, their values, their why, and is kind of a priority. We've seen that in the data, in the research that's been coming out over the last few years.
Totally accurate. You have to tell a story about why somebody needs to come to work at your organization, whether it's Stack Overflow or any organization. You have to be able to say, there is a place for you, and this is what the connection is. You have to be able to describe it.
Yeah.
And you have to give them an incentive to want to come to work for you. And it isn't just a paycheck. People don't work for paychecks anymore. We just don't.
Mm-hmm. It only goes so far, right? Like I've worked in companies where I thought, I'm going to earn this much money. I'm so excited about it. And a few months in, I'm just miserable because yes, I'm earning great money, but I'm just like, why am I getting out of bed? What difference am I making? What is the impact that I'm having? And I think now more than ever, being stuck at home with kind of a lot of people have sat there and reassessed that. Like a lot of my friends have changed jobs and family members, or they're going to change jobs very soon because they've kind of had that time to think and reflect and say, is this really what I want to do with my life?
Right.
Is this really what I want? If I'm going to get up every day and do this, is this really what I want to do?
We've all slowed down and spent time reflecting and realizing the things we will do and the things we won't do. And I think that's been a positive of the pandemic. And what's important? Family, friends, being able to be together. It's the same thing when we talk about what's your culture going to look like and what's your company going to look like when we come out of the pandemic. Is the company going to take a position? Are they going to require everybody to have a vaccine if you want to work in an office? There's a lot of debate around that right now too. Will I go back to an office if the office isn't clean? They don't take temperatures. I mean, there's a lot of pressure right now on human resources and people organizations to make the right decisions with their leaders. But it isn't just HR. It's a partnership, and it really takes everyone to make those decisions. We just have to drive the decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting because now we're getting to the point we spoke before, the call in the UK, over 50% of adults are now vaccinated. I think in order to fly, you need to show that you've been vaccinated to certain locations now. So that's an interesting one, right? Because, basically if you're not vaccinated, you kind of have to be vaccinated, otherwise you can't leave your country. And that is a whole nother conversation to be had. But I do think the next step will be, there are going to be companies coming out in the next maybe 6 to 12 months saying you kind of have to be vaccinated in order to come into the office. And that's going to be a tough one because there's going to be a lot of backlash, as you can imagine. I think
they've also said that it's you can make it a legal requirement to come to an office and have a vaccination, but organizations haven't stepped up to say that's going to be a requirement yet. So it'll be,
I think everyone's afraid of saying it and announcing it.
Yes, because they're afraid that they're going to lose their employees, because there's going to be some employees that'll say, I don't want to get vaccinated. I don't believe in it. I don't want it for personal reasons, for health reasons. They won't be able to do it. And so do they want to lose that employee over a vaccination decision? It's going to be very difficult, and more pressure to put onto organizations to make a decision one way or another.
Yeah. Have you already had that conversation with the team?
Yeah, they don't want to require it.
Yeah.
They do not want to require it. Although I have some employees that have asked me, are you going to require it?
Oh, the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't come back into an office unless I know I'm safe and that everyone else has a vaccine. See, people are switching it around. So it's interesting to see, the thought process of employers versus employees. So it'll be a test of time to see what will really happen. I think you're going to start seeing people, I've heard even in certain states like Arizona, they're coming back to the workplace. I'm hearing that California, it'll be anytime between July and September and the end of the year. So it just depends. And some organizations are already back here in California. So.
I've got a guest coming on. I'm not going to mention their name, but today, they're 10,000 plus employees, and they're announcing that everyone has to come back to the office. So there's no flexible working. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm
Do
sure.
They have a date? Have they have the date yet?
I think so. I think they do. Yeah. I don't want to say too much, but yeah, obviously I haven't mentioned their name anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, and their leadership team made a hard start. I was challenging in our conversation beforehand, and I'm interested to do the episode today to ask a bit more questions about the rationale behind it. But I was quite surprised, to be honest. They're a very well established company that and everyone knows. And they're actually
I can guess who it is, but I won't.
Going down the route, I would say, I'll give you a hint and say that given the industry sector, you're probably not surprised. As well, there's certain industry sectors and that we can we talk about, like finance. We've seen a lot of large financial organizations or big consulting companies that I'm speaking with that have gone back, that have said, no, everyone needs to be in the office. Being in the office is our culture, is the kind of language they're using, and we want to retain that. What do you think the risk is for companies that are taking that stance?
I think the risk is that some people will just say, I don't want to work in an office anymore. I've been at home for a year and I don't want to commute. I don't want to risk health for health reasons. And they'll just say, it's fine, I'll go find another job. I think the job market is picking back up again. There is still a lot of unemployed people. However, I'm seeing, positive light. So if it's something they can do somewhere else, I think they'll lose some of their really talented people. And that's the sad part when you have to make a hardline decision. But anytime you make a hardline decision, you're not going to make everybody happy. And
they must know that, they must know that they're going to lose. Surely they must know that's going to happen to some extent. What do you think the benefits are of going back here?
I think you're right. I think when they talk about culture, I think it's true. Organizations have culture. It's how they get things done. It's how they work together. It's their beliefs. So culture is key. And if they're finding that they're losing that culture by being apart, I think it's smart to have people come back to the office. I'm not a proponent of just saying stay remote forever. I'm just not. I think there is a hybrid model that can work. Maybe it's a hybrid model where you come in once a month or twice a month. It's not that you have to be in the office every day, but getting people together and working on projects when you can see body language and you can see people and you can grab them at their heartstrings, which is what I like to do, and really get them involved in activities and off-site working together, having fun together, actually having a cocktail party together.
A real one, not on Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom doesn't work for a cocktail party. I mean, it's like watching TV and drinking a glass of wine. I want to be able to talk. I want to walk around. And I think other people miss that. It's the connection with these people that you've known for a while. And people are missing it. But there's also people that say, I'm not missing it and I never want to go back again. That's what happened when we did a survey. We heard people say 70% said, I don't really care about going back into the office. Now, you would expect that from engineers because they work a lot by themselves.
They sit there on a laptop anyway. So they're not coming to the office to, well, yes, they may have some meetings if they're a manager, but in reality, 90% of their time is spent on a laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But salespeople,
they miss it.
They miss it. They miss the social.
The energy that keeps them going, right? That's one thing I was, when this first happened, because my whole background sales, and that was the first thing I thought about as salespeople, because that's, you live off that energy. And if you're having a bad day or you get, lose a few deals, you're getting a nose, it's those people around you, the energy that picks you up, that keeps you going, right? So I think that they're probably struggling more than most in terms of the functions. But I think you made a good point. I think the point is the choice and the flexibility. Yes, I'm in the office today, and I love being here. I do have an office from home, but I love being here. And yes, I only have 2 employees in because we can't all be here for obvious reasons. But just seeing one of them, just seeing my co-founder and one other employee and saying hello and seeing how they are, that I would rather travel in to the office and have that experience. But it's not for everyone. And obviously we've had to juggle with my wife and I with our daughter and what that looks like and how it works. But we're gonna keep the office. There was I
think it's good. I think it's really good. I went to an office every day. Unless I was traveling, I was in that office every day because it was 5 miles away. Now they hired me to be a remote person. The large office, corporate office, is in New York. So I live in California, and so I will never be in the office every day. Mm-hmm. I will travel. I will go to other offices, but I won't be in an office every day. So it's okay.
We're past that now. Well, listen, before I let you go, I'm going to jump into our quick fire round, which I do with each guest. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
Yep.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a CHRO? Or Chief People Officer, sorry.
Yeah, I would just say that it was the ability to get things done quickly. And to ask for what I wanted and to get the answer of, yes, you've got that. Yeah.
Was you worried about asking the question, or was it more about selling the idea?
I'm not a salesperson, so yes, I would say it's selling the idea. Very good, Chris.
And what's the best piece of business advice you received?
I think the best business advice I've ever received was from a head of sales who said, come in with your plan, have it be short, sweet, to the point, and have your cost and have no emotion around it. And so that's worked for me. I've taken the emotion out of business decisions and the ask. And it's made a huge difference. Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to do that as well. You have to lead with the business case, the data,
right.
What's some books that you could recommend to our audience and why?
Good books?
Yeah. Doesn't have to be HR related, by the way.
Yeah, well, there's The Culture Code, which is an awesome book. Another book I really like is Know Your Why. That's a great book. Another good book, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I have a whole bunch.
Two's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. I have a whole bunch of books, but
two great books already that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What's a common misconception people have about you?
Oh, that I love people. And that,
That was a good answer.
That I'm an extrovert. No, I am an extrovert, but really, people, they think I love everybody, which is what people always think that of CHROs, that we got into the business because we love people. It's because we're problem solvers and we get things done. And we get shit done. That's it. We get stuff done.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. You can't love everyone. There's going to be certain people that drive you crazy as well. What's one thing about the business that you're most excited about?
I'm really excited about the organizational transformation and really helping the organization get prepared to be a grown-up company. And that includes processes and systems and bringing in great talent in the organization and really watching leaders and managers grow and employees grow. So really watching the career progression of people and helping them coach them to get to the next level is something I get really excited about. Probably one of the things I've enjoyed the most in my career is watching my fellow coworkers just grow and learn how to fly, whether they stay in the organization and do something inside or they go out and they, spread their wings and they have a great career and a great success. I think it's very, it's nice to watch.
Yeah. There's no better feeling, right, than seeing someone come in and flourish and develop. Yeah, definitely. When I became a manager, that was one thing I didn't expect. That to if someone asked me what's the great thing about being a manager, that was for me, seeing someone come in who's fresh, brand new, and just seeing them grow and develop in the years and surpass me in many ways in some areas, which is for me was great. That was the biggest bonus to see. How would your family describe what you do for a living?
Oh boy. For a long time, my husband had no idea what I did. And he'd tell everyone, I don't know what she does. I think he'd say she talks on the telephone and she's on Zoom calls all the time. But she's the adult babysitter and she sticks her nose into everybody else's business and tries to tell them what they need to do. And she does other people's work. That's what he would probably say. I think it's a pretty funny question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've heard him say that before. Why are you doing that? Why are you, and I'm like, I'm trying to help the company. And he goes, yeah, that's not your job.
Yeah. Well,
but he's self-employed and he doesn't know anything about organizational structures. And so he has an opinion.
Yeah, love it. And then last thing, I definitely did more than 5 questions. I got carried away. But last thing, what advice would you give to your younger self early in your career?
Maybe not going into human resources and thinking about doing something else. And maybe do something like sales because it's different, So it's something that would make me go down a different path and look at things differently. I love what I do. That's evident because I get up every morning and I've been doing it for so long. But I wonder what it would have been like for me to be in sales or in engineering, and would the career trajectory look the same? Mm-hmm. So it would be do something different.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have that. That's a very interesting answer you gave there, but I think we all have that moment, don't we? Of I wonder what would happen if I pursued this career.
Yeah.
You know, or that career. Like my co-founder was very close to pursuing a career in supply chain. And he was doing all of his studies and he was like, I'm going to be a supply chain director and everything. And then he kind of veered down this route. And, you know, no one really kind of chooses their path. It kind of chooses them. You kind of taste different things and then you kind of go on it. Like I didn't plan on doing this for a living as well, but we're here now. So that's a very honest answer. You just don't kind of wonder what would happen if I would chose that career or that career. As well. But look, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I appreciate it. And super exciting company you're working in. Couldn't be better positioned given your product, the people, your why, your purpose is adding so much value. I'm definitely going to download the product you mentioned, by the way. I didn't know about that before this call, but I'm going to check it out as well. You'll see me sign up. And apart from that, if anyone else wants to listen and wants to connect with you, where's the best place for them to connect with you and say hello?
At Stack Overflow, D Shotwell at stackoverflow.com. Would love to hear from you. And if you need anything, fellow HR professionals, I'm out here to help. And Chris, thank you so much for having me on today. It was wonderful to spend time with you again.
You too. No worries. Well, listen, I'll let you get on with your day. I'm jealous that you got nice weather, so enjoy it. And I'll see you again soon, all right? See you later.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.